So, John, tell me about Study Academy. Who are you? What do you do?
So it's a great question because we do quite a lot. I know I'm one of those people who say we do a bit of everything. But so Study Academy, essentially, we're an online training company. We offer certificated courses, accredited qualifications, and they're really in various categories, various sectors. We've over 70 courses now, and that's constantly growing month on month. We're always developing new courses, but we've really targeted a niche now that's in and around financial compliance and regulatory compliance. It's a space that needs training. There's huge implications there, so we really focus and specialise in that space, and we offer, whether it's off the shelf e-learning, tailored bespoke courses to our clients, or ultimately even fully branded, designed and built education platforms that we have for some of our larger clients as well. So we're essentially a full turnkey solution, or a learning and development arm for businesses. We essentially take over that part of their business to help them and support them through compliance and growth.
E-learning, it's a massively competitive sector. What got you into it? What got you started? That's not your background, is it?
No, it isn't. It's what training is. E-learning specifically isn't. But yeah, we're in a saturated market. It is very competitive, very busy. There's lots of e-learning companies out there, and I think we were having a discussion earlier that anyone can almost design courses now with the technology and the platforms and the software that's out there. But can they do it? Do it well. So yeah, it's competitive, and I think, and I've said this for a long time, that I think the e-learning space, being a company in the e-learning space, it's quite difficult actually to differentiate yourself. Everyone can be in a race to the bottom on price. Everyone can deliver a health and safety course. I suppose ultimately it comes down to a small handful of USPs that we have now implemented. And the way that we've done that is through speaking to our clients, asking them, what are your pain points? What are the struggles that you're facing? And what are the issues really with the current training that you have? So the biggest things that set us apart, in my opinion, and thankfully in the opinion of our clients as well, is everything's tailored and bespoke, but it's high quality, certificated programs, put together, developed and designed by industry leading experts. We use some of the best subject matter experts around for that content. So our clients are happy and know that the content they're getting, especially in the compliance space, because good compliance is good business at the end of the day, and it's going to help those businesses ensure that they are compliant, because the fines and things that are in that industry for doing it wrong are pretty extreme. So great content through subject matter experts, but ultimately our training's measurable. And when I say measurable, it needs to have an impact, whether it's on the individual that's taking that course and learning, or whether it's the business as a whole. And again, as I say, we're in various different sectors and industries, but in the compliance space itself, having an impact on a business is ensuring that they're compliant, their staff understand the things that they need to understand to ensure that they aren't, carrying out something that could ultimately have a detrimental impact to that business. And then finally, and I think every business can probably say that, but I think it's one of our biggest USPs, and mine personally, because I love the relationship we have with our clients, is that the relationship. It's a partnership. It's not a business transaction. We're not looking to sign someone up on a monthly or annual agreement, go, here's access to your e-learning, enjoy, crack on, you'll be compliant, some great courses. It's ensuring that, we're working with them constantly, whether it's adapting that content to meet their needs as a business, because every business is different, especially in a regulatory space, as pension companies, as insurance providers, as, loan providers, through to cafes and retailers that we have as clients. Everyone is different. So it's ensuring that we work with them closely, and that those courses and that training really meets their needs and is specific to them, and just keeping that relationship. I still, to this day, I'm essentially like the relationship manager for most of our clients. First name terms, I meet up with them, constantly having calls with them, just to make sure that everything's going as it should be. And as I mentioned earlier, that the training that's being delivered is having the impact that we said it would, and that the client wants, and it's measurable.
People ask me all the time, what's your USP? And I kind of go, well, my people don't work for other companies. It's them. Do you know what I mean? It is the relationships. If you want to work with us, then that's our USP. You'll get looked after by us, really.
And that's how it should be. Ultimately, it's whether you're, purchasing a pair of socks through to, buying a house, ultimately the decision you make, the majority of the time, you're going to have a logical, obviously, decision in that, aren't you? But it's the emotional side as well. That's where your buying response is going to come from. And that long-term relationship with a client is ultimately, that's how it should be. It should be the fact that they trust you. The courses, the content, everything there, that should be a given. And it is, it's a given that ultimately you're delivering compliance training here. That needs to be, high level certificated programs, which is a given. We're doing that. But it's how you're then working with that client and, innovating and developing and moving forward. And like I said before, we're essentially part of their team. And the way that I always look at it, and I say this to current clients and potential clients as well, is we are your learning and development arm or division of the business. For a lot cheaper than employing 5 L&D managers, but having the same impact. But we get to know their business, we get to know the individuals, and we get to know the ins and outs of what they're trying to achieve, and the hurdles that they face as a business from a compliance point of view, and not even outside of compliance, from what they're trying to achieve. And I use an example, and it's an FCA regulated firm, and they'll be more than happy me mentioning them. But HomeServe, UK HomeServe PLC, the huge organisation. We provide the e-learning for all of their staff, and actually we designed a whole program of not just regulatory courses, but also leadership and management. And they said we already have in-house 3 courses that, because their culture is fantastic. Greg Reed, the former CEO, has now moved on, but he built a fantastic culture, and it was all about building people up from internally, through this sort of leadership program. And they said, we've spoken to other providers, but they're just off the shelf. They're offering us off the shelf solutions to what is this internal leadership program where we want certification associated with our great programs, but how can we mold a certificated program around what we've developed in-house? So we sat, I think it was just shy of a week, conducting training needs analysis. We were looking at their mission. What do they want these future leaders to be doing? How do they want them to, run their divisions within the business? And then we mapped a level 5 operational departmental manager course through the Chartered Management Institute. So they had that accreditation, but all the knowledge, skills and behaviours that were sort of taught within that course were mapped to their business, their mission, their values, which is huge. They care a lot about their people and their clients, so they wanted to ensure that was all integrated. So that's how we sort of work with them and have that relationship on a much sort of detailed level, as opposed to here's your off-the-shelf project management course that you can get everyone through, and everyone will be singing off the same hymn sheet. So that's for us is a key element. Is just that relationship and making sure it's there, and it filters down then. Yep.
Someone said to me when I first set up the business that there's riches and niches. Yeah. And he was kind of double down on your niche. Yeah. So I know you guys have been going a while, but you've made kind of a decision that we're going to double down on compliance and try and be the company in the compliance sector, really. Why that sector?
I spoke before about it's difficult to differentiate, but I think for us, sort of that niche of the compliance sector, and the reason that we're focusing on it is because the impact of things not being conducted correctly in that space are huge. And as I said before, for us, training has to be measurable. So anything that we're doing is having to have an impact, and it's a space where we can have such a big impact that we're able to actually implement the training and the courses, so that these organizations, where if something does go wrong, and there may be people watching that are from regulated firms, will know themselves that there's extremely high fines, there's potentially lack of employment further down the line, because the regulators can stop that happening if things are done incorrectly, and even ultimately custodial sentences, which has happened through people not doing things correctly or sort of overstepping the line in some cases in regards to financial crime and things. So for us, we are focusing heavily on that niche of regulatory compliance. We have as I say before, over 70 courses, and we've got clients from, a cafe with 2 individuals in Solihull here in the West Midlands, all the way through to FTSE 100 organisations, and everything in between. That ranges from, health and social care through to retailers, through to, regulated businesses, and even through to the Ministry of Defence as a client and qualifying serving soldiers. But ultimately, this space really enables us to have that impact as part of our mission, really, to have an impact to help the regulated sector stay regulated, and to help those companies avoid those terrible, obviously, circumstances if things do go wrong. And there's lots of examples out there of that happening. And I think the space needs it. There's some fantastic companies out there that are delivering high level accredited qualifications. I think where we are different is we almost fit just under that high level element, where we're focusing on frontline staff, bite size, micro learning that gives people punchy segments of learning around niche areas of financial compliance. Whether we're focused on the gambling sector or insurance or pensions, we'll really dive into that sort of niche area and ensure that those little areas of compliance are covered, as opposed to a more generic, higher level, course that may be suitable for someone looking to, get a high level job in money laundering or whatever it may be. We're sort of focusing on, the employees, essentially, where everyone, because it's from an individual working in a counter within a bank, all the way up, that needs those types of courses and that training. So it's a great niche for us, and it enables us to have that impact.
I think it's really good focusing on the consequences as well of not having it.
Yeah.
I've got a friend, Paul, who's an electrician. You know how everyone on LinkedIn has like the strap lines on the profiles? Yeah. And his is, I stop you going to jail. You know what I mean? It's basically works with commercial companies, make sure things don't blow up. Because if they do blow up, you're going to go to jail. And that's his thing, I stop you going to go to jail.
I like that. I have to use that.
What do you think needs to change in the e-learning industry?
It's a good question. For me, one of the things that I wouldn't say frustrates me, but I mentioned it earlier that, essentially anyone now can log into a platform, for a very small amount a month and design a course, take things from Google, use Chat GPT to change it, and essentially look like a subject matter expert. And I think that's a difficulty within this sector, is there are a lot of organisations out there, and again, I'll come back to the compliance space, but the last thing that you want to do is potentially, sign staff up to a course where it's been plagiarised, or it's not, high quality content, it's not certificated, it's not accredited. And ultimately because that will have an impact on an audit, when they're looking into where these employees have been trained by. So I think it's an unregulated space, essentially. E-learning is the training industry is regulated. You have to be part of an awarding body, you have to be a registered training centre. But again, that's not difficult to do. But in terms of the e-learning world, it's essentially unregulated. And I think that's probably what needs to change. And I'm not saying that, there should be this big, scary e-learning regulator that's on top of everyone. But the quality of those courses and the individuals behind the content of those courses, there should be some form of quality assurance process. I suppose a bit like what we do internally, should be out there as a whole, and a sort of this is a business idea, I think, actually. There's a regulatory body for the e-learning world to ensure that, the content that people are delivering to these organisations is suitable, it's up to scratch, and it's the quality that it should be. And I think that's the only the frustrating thing. And that, there's platforms out there that offer free courses, and you look at them, and sadly the content it's poor, and there'll be organisations out there that are using that, and that they haven't got time, and think, they're busy people, and they think, well, that's a solution there. And sometimes for people running hectic businesses, learning and development is almost at times a second thought. And I think that's another thing that's wrong with the space. It should be a priority. It's developing individuals. So sometimes they'll say, can you sort that out? And they're on then to free platforms with this really substandard content. So I think that's what needs to change. There needs to be something in place that enables organisations to almost see, well, they're a reputable company. Their courses are reputable, and I think for us that's why we have gone down the process of accreditation and CPD UK and ensuring that everyone that we use has multiple years experience, and then just having all those courses quality assured by multiple people, and making sure that they're up to scratch.
So I know you work with a massive variety of clients, but who's an ideal client for Study Academy? Who do you really want?
We have, I think everyone and every business has their sort of perfect or ideal client. And as I say, we work in various sectors, from the small cafe through to FTSE 100s and everything in between. From our side of things, it essentially and ultimately comes down to, what business can we have the biggest impact on? How can we actually help them see measurable changes? And we had a retailer that we trained 3,500 staff from their retail outlets, and from that customer service training, as an example, they said that their productivity within stores and even sales had gone up by over 60%, which is a huge number, which was fantastic. So it was measurable. It had that impact, and them actually retaining staff, the turnover of staff was huge. It was young people, sort of students who would work for a bit, go, new staff in. So it was constant. This is a constant churn. And even by being invested in, those individuals actually stayed longer. We found that the lifetime value of that individual staying on board was a lot longer. But if we're getting to specifics of a client, I think for us it usually where we have the biggest impact is if they're anywhere from 200 to 300 staff plus. Especially in the regulated space, but as I say, the fines in the regulated space are huge. The impact negatively of doing things wrong are huge, and we're ultimately having that impact. We're stopping people losing their jobs, stopping people going to prison, stopping companies closing down and receiving huge fines. But if they've got their own learning management system, it's fantastic. We can provide them with all the courses, because a lot of these clients, we have our own learning management system, which is fantastic, but usually we find those organisations of that size will have their own. And if they do, it's given that organisation, the individual, that control for them to manage it themselves. We support them, of course. 300 plus staff, their own learning management system, where we then tailor the courses, send them the files to upload on their own LMS. So their staff are used to that, and they're not having to then all of a sudden go to a completely different platform and log in elsewhere. And those individuals within the organisation, whether it's the L&D, the head of risk and compliance, whoever it may be that's arranging that training, they genuinely want the training not just to fill a gap and tick a box, but they ultimately want to make a difference to the business, to the individuals, and want that training in place because they believe in it. And that we find that the clients that have that attitude are the ones that do really well in compliance, ensuring that everything's in place, and getting buy-in from the staff and the individuals as well. And anyone wants to come on. It's a CAF. So we, but as I say, we love working with all of our clients, and any sector is great, and our broad range of courses enables us to do that. But where our biggest impact is in the regulatory space because of the focus on those courses that we've put together recently.
What are the biggest problems that your clients face, and how do you go about solving them?
Probably perfect timing actually with that question, because it wasn't so long ago that we reached out to some multiple clients. I think it was 12 of them in total, from different sizes, smaller SMEs, to some of the larger organisations as well. And we actually said to them, whether it's past experience or currently, what are the issues that you face? What are the problems that are keeping you awake at night? And the reason that we did the whole exercise actually was not so much around our training and e-learning. That was obviously a key factor in it. But one of the things that we currently do is we deliver educational software platforms, and we now sort of build those around compliance and things. One of our clients is a company called Divide By, who was recently acquired by Zopa Bank, and their head of compliance came to us and said, "I've got a massive headache here, a massive problem. I've got one platform that hosts all of our policies. I've got you guys that do our e-learning, which is great. I've got a HR platform that does all that side of things, and then I've got this other compliance platform that does this. So 4 different platforms, 4 different subscriptions, 4 different logins. Can you just put it all in one place?" And we were like, "Yeah, of course." This is what we do as a sort of our bigger packages. So we sat down with them and we developed an all-encompassing sort of web-based platform that had its own learning management system, had branded courses in there. So all of their compliance e-learning was in there that was completely tailored, videos from their CEO, things like that, all of their policies and procedures in one place. So it was all there. So they had access to it and didn't have to worry about the headache of having multiple ways to go. So that's a big one, really, a headache of, especially in compliance. Essentially they're logging into multiple platforms, multiple software, and it was just a bit of a headache for them. So we wanted to integrate everything in one place. So it was one login, ease of use, ease of administration. And I think finally, and nobody wants to be in a race to the bottom for price, and we certainly aren't, but for the level of quality and certification and the courses that we have, we're very cost effective. This is a space where, as I say, we're trying to make an impact. So we don't want to charge people the earth. And our prices really vary, from, like I say earlier, our smallest clients who are, anywhere from less than £1,000 a month up to some of our, larger organisations with thousands of staff that have bespoke tailored programmes that are in place, and everything in between. So, we have a package that suits all businesses of all sizes. And I think that's key for us, is making sure that, companies out there, heads of learning and development, compliance, risk managers, are able to access training at a cost that isn't, going to make them choke on their morning coffee, but also they have the confidence there to know that what they're purchasing is high quality training.
Brilliant. So in terms of the future, two questions really. What do you think the future looks like for e-learning in general? What does the future look like for Study Academy?
God, the future. I think we're all a bit in the whole world of AI and everything at the moment. So I think virtual reality and again AI are probably going to be, and already are, having an impact. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. There's a lot out there with AI of sort of pros and cons. I think it's great from a learner perspective that there's AI can now be integrated into courses so that they have almost a virtual tutor that has that knowledge, has that experience, can answer questions for them and refer them to further reading and things. And it might have a positive impact further down the line. A thing that I quite like is the whole sort of augmented reality, virtual reality. I have a very large client of ours who has implemented that within their business. And when I visited their offices recently, their head of health and safety there said, you need to have a go at this. So I put on these goggles and had these little controls in my hand. And I was walking around picking in a warehouse, and forklift trucks were coming towards me, and there was a fire I had to put out and things like that. Which was fantastic, and it throws you off a little bit, actually. I think like even the forklift coming towards me, I was like, whoa, you sort of jump back a bit, because it's real footage as well. But then the augmented sort of virtual reality side of thing is, it's putting a set of glasses on and there's a fire in this room and you can see and you're having to put it out and things like that. And I think that's great, that's sort of developing. I think even surgeons nowadays can conduct operations, mock operations using virtual reality. So I think that will come into play a lot more as we move along. And hopefully, as I said earlier, that the future of e-learning is that there is some sort of accountability behind organisations that are providing it to ensure that it is as it should be. And maybe from this podcast alone, there's a new business of the Study Academy e-learning regulator or something like that, so that we make sure that those providing those courses are up to scratch. But who knows? Look at 10 years ago, we wouldn't have known the technology and the things that we have now. So it's exciting. Probably a bit scary as well, but it's quite difficult to say in terms of the e-learning space itself. But I think it's constantly evolving, and companies are constantly having to innovate as well. We are, we're having to stay ahead of technology, because if you don't, you get left behind. So we need to ensure that we are on top of that as well. And for Study Academy, it's an exciting time currently. It's an exciting time, with a few announcements coming up soon. And obviously us, really pushing into the space of regulatory compliance as well. But I think for us, ultimately, we want to have impacted, a huge amount of businesses within the next 2 to 3 years, and really help them on that compliance journey to become compliant and stay compliant. And I think for us to, grow substantially, because the more that we grow, again, it comes back to that impact, that measurable training, but the more of an impact we can have on our current clients and our future clients as well. So growing our team, growing our presence, and eventually, quite soon, looking to then launch outside of the UK in multiple countries as well to start providing compliance there.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.